There we go. Okay. Sorry for the abrupt, obnoxious recording in progress. All right. So here we go. We've been dealing with a series called Resist the Empire. Resist the Empire. All right. That was very intentional for this Black History Month / Black Futures Month, as we talk through some of the ways that the operation of Black people in this country has been taken advantage of. It's been commercialized, it's been corporatized. And even on a spiritual and biblical level, it's been so muddled and misconstrued that we've confused God's kingdom with America's nationalism. So now this universal whiteness that has historically plagued the church, not just the Black church, but the whole tenets of Christianity, to a point where people don't want anything to do with the faith because of how connected it is to its violent white roots, right? Not to say there is no genuine or authentic relationship with Christ with white people. But what I'm saying is in the advent of the slave trade, historically, especially at the inception of this country, we see Black bodies and Black labor be used as some type of corporate commodity that helps advance this country financially, right? But then all we're told is that we just need to hold on to Jesus, right? So then people walk away from this faith. They're like, hold on to Jesus. That don't mean nothing for me when I'm watching my family get killed in the streets, when I'm watching laws and stuff not be made in my favor, when I don't have the right voting power, when the ballots are being tampered with in my communities, but not other places, right? So we've been dealing with how to progress as a people and resist this empire of universal whiteness, this idea that everything right is connected to whiteness in this country. Everything, quote unquote, righteous is connected to this empire of whiteness, right? So I want to deal from a historical perspective with Acts chapter 18. Acts chapter 18, and I'm gonna tell y'all which one. I mentioned one of the enemy's weapons. Which one of the enemy's weapons we're gonna talk about that he uses often, especially in our community. All right, Acts chapter 18. If you have your own Bible, hold on. Can I make you co-host or host, and then you look it up for me and share the screen? Thank you so much. All right. So I'm gonna get the scripture up on the screen just in case you don't have the Bible with you. I'm gonna be reading English Standard Version. I mean, I hope you came to Bible study with your Bible with you. I'm gonna be reading from the English Standard Version. All right. All right. So verse 1, Acts 18, verse 1. It says that after this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. And he found a Jew named Achilles, a native of Pontus, recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla. Okay, because Claudius had commanded all the Jews to leave Rome. All right, we're gonna get into that history too. I'm gonna break that down. And he went to see them. This is Paul now. He went to see them. And because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them and worked, for they were tent makers by trade. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and tried to persuade Jews and Greeks. When Silas and Timothy arrived from Macedonia, Paul was occupied with the word, testifying to the Jews that the Christ was Jesus. And when they opposed and reviled him, he shook out his garments and said to them, your blood be on your own heads. I am innocent. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles. Let's drop to verse 9, okay? And the Lord said to Paul one night in a vision, do not be afraid, but go on speaking and do not be silent, all right? Do not be afraid, but go on speaking and do not be Silent. Somebody just drop in the chat. Don't be silent. Don't be silent. Don't be silent. Don't be silent. All right. Why not? For I am with you. For I am with you. And no one will attack you to harm you. For I have many in this city who are, here goes that community again, Nina, my people. I got you, because I have many in this city who are my people. You can ask for help, because I have many in this city who are my people. Dime, people that matter, your opinion matters. When you come into a community with a city of people are God's people. But check this out, y'all. We're going to stop there, but check this out. In verse 9, the Lord said to Paul one night in a vision, do not be afraid, but go on speaking, and do not be silent. All right? In this whole Black History Month series where we're talking about resist the empire, one of the things that the enemy wants to do to our community is silence us. Silence us. Because if they can silence us, they can take our power. All right? Now watch this. We got to understand that no matter how vast or no matter how great or amazing or detailed or elaborate or articulate we try to describe God, as humans, our expression will always fall short. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. No matter how elaborate, no matter how articulate, no matter how detailed, our expressions will always fall short. Because God is so vast that no amount of words can truly encompass all that he is. Right? I'm gonna say something that might be controversial. I'm gonna mess your head up a little bit because this is Bible study. But even Genesis through Revelation is only pieces of how great God is. I'm gonna say it again. It doesn't mean that this is not his inerrant full word, but it's a fraction of the vastness of God, right? His fullness, his essence. But even though his essence is so great, that doesn't mean we should try to stop having conversations about God. Okay? Just because we'll never fully encompass him doesn't mean we should ever stop having conversations about God. Why? Because our voices is the tool that God uses to animate himself in the world. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Our voice is the tool God uses to animate himself in the world. He can't be seen lest they see us. He usually can't be heard unless we open up our mouths. The question you got to ask yourself is, how many people are still captive because I'm silent about something I'm supposed to speak up about? I'm in somebody's business already. We just get started. How many people, this for my note takers, our voice is what God uses to animate himself into the world. And the question you have to ask yourself is, how many people are still captive because we are silent about something we should be speaking up about? Okay, so you remember when we closed out our last series, one of the things we said was all of us have a purpose that's connected to a face. What I meant by that is everybody has a mission that's given by God that's connected to a somebody. If you think your purpose is only connected to stuff, God gifted me so that I could buy, God gifted me so that I could drive, you've missed the whole thing. Look nice, drive nice, live nice, invest nice. I don't care. Do whatever the heck you want to do. But when you put things over the value of the real reason for your gift, you've lost the reason. Of course, they should pay you for what you do. Of course, you should make money off of what you do. Of course, you should have a service that you can give that you can make commodity from. Sure. But the goal is still reaching people. And here in this vision, God tells Paul, don't be afraid, but go on speaking and do not be silent. Two things he tells him to not do. Don't forget, take your notes. Two things he tells him to not do. He says, don't be afraid and don't be silent. He says, don't be afraid and don't be silent. Now, when you hear that, sometimes God sounds irrational. Drop a 1 in the comment if it sounds crazy for God to tell you to not be scared with the season you in your life or the vision that you know you've been given. How could you not be scared? Drop a 1 if that's you. If it sounds crazy for God to tell you not to be scared about all this vision he given you, all this direction you're supposed to be going, all these people you're supposed to be healing, all this deliverance that's supposed to happen. How could I not be scared? When you first look at this at a glance, God sounds irrational. He sounds ridiculous telling me to not be scared in this new season of life, and you took somebody that I love out my life. You sound ridiculous telling, how am I supposed to do this next season without them? You sound ridiculous telling me without this amount of financial cushion, I'm supposed to do this. Don't be scared and don't be silent. But God is not crazy, y'all. I mean, a little crazy, but it's good crazy, right? It's good crazy. He then tells him why you shouldn't be scared. He doesn't negate that there's reason, and we're going to go through some history because I'm going to give you some historical context to talk through why Paul might be scared and why God has to say this. Okay, there's a reason God has to say this, and we're going to go through some historical backdrop. There's a reason God has to say, don't be afraid. It's not just out of nowhere. Paul has a lot of reasons to be scared in this text, and I'm going to give you some historical context as to why. But then God sandwiches all of the tension that Paul should be afraid of, and the request to not be afraid. He then completes that sandwich with an answer of why he shouldn't be afraid. He says, no one will attack you to harm you, for I have many in this city. Really what he said, oh God, I feel him. Really what he's saying to Paul is that the reason you are afraid is loneliness. Most of us are not scared because of incapability. Most of us are scared because we think we'll have to do it by ourselves. Trust me, it messed me up too. Don't worry. You throw your phone, do a backflip. Really do an audit, do an inventory emotionally. Most of us are not scared because we don't think we can do what we're being asked to do. Most of us are scared because we think it's going to be too much to do it by myself. He says, do not be silent and do not be afraid. Why? Before he gets to the community being with him, the first thing he establishes, he says, I am with you. Oh man. He says, what's that? Is that verse? Where we at, man? We have verse 9. Is that verse 9? Is that verse 9? Okay, right there, 9 into 10. Could you highlight it or no? All right, cool. Appreciate you. He says, one night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision. Do not be afraid. Keep on speaking. Do not be silent, for I am with you. A lot of us have to get established in understanding that God is with us. When we look at the season our lives are in right now, we don't think we got nobody. And that's how we end up, watch this, that's how we end up settling for lesser and suboptimal company to be the ones that uphold our dreams and our vision, simply because we want God. I mean, simply because we don't realize we have God. And when you don't know you have God, you'll try to get anything else. See, God will help you keep a standard. Huh? Isaiah 55 says the Lord lifts up, he lifts up a standard. When the enemy comes in like a flood, God lifts a standard. God will help you keep a standard. And the reason we'll settle for anything because we first don't realize we have God. When we realize we have God, we're not settling for things beneath our standard. Because when the enemy comes like a flood, God lifts up a standard. That's the book. God lifts up a standard. So if God lifts up a standard, there's no way I'm settling for less than that standard. But it only happens, watch this, when I feel like I don't have God. When I feel like I don't have God, I also lose foundation of standards. So he says to Paul, before you reach for the people, know that I am with you. No worry, it's still Black history. We still talking. There's a lot of issues in our community that we got. Know y'all like, oh, this is good. Is this still resist the empire? This is still resist the empire. The reason movements become powerful is because we have multiple people who agree and say yes. It becomes a movement when our mind and our spirit agree and say no more. Okay, just this afternoon, no, not this afternoon. I think it might have been yesterday afternoon. Just yesterday afternoon, maybe. 2 white police officers in New Jersey, not too far from where we live, in Bridgewater Mall or something like that. A white boy and a black boy, both teenagers in a fist fight. White boy pointing, mushing him in the face. Black boy hits him. They get it popping. Police come. 2 white police officers sit the white boy down on the seat. Throw the black boy on the floor. Arm twisted, head to the floor. Zip tied. Checks on the well-being of the white boy and asks, are you okay? And now there's an outrage. Because collectively, we say no, not okay. Right? So when God gives us a vision, he needs us to collectively know that God is with us. Watch this, watch this. God with us doesn't mean we all go to church. I'm gonna mess y'all up. Because sometimes God's work is done even from people that don't know him as intimately. Because God is still spirit. So he still exists and animates himself through vessels. And somebody can absorb a principle that is biblical, whether they believe in the Bible or not. Wealthy people understand biblical wealth, whether they identify as Bible followers or Christians or not. Why? Because we hold this word to be intimate to us. but it doesn't mean that some of its principles are not still accessible to the mind that God gave us. So God's work can be done when people collectively do God's stuff. And saying that it's not okay for this white boy to be sat down and teeter-tatted and patted and made sure he's okay, while the black boy, mind you, the white boy had tackled the black boy. So at the moment they got there, the white boy is winning the fight. Huh? But people with their phones and people and lawyers and attorneys who collectively say no, say, I'm doing God's stuff, caring for the unjust. Caring to tear down the unjust. Okay, let me get back into this. He tells him, don't be afraid. He also tells him, go on speaking. Here goes that silence. Here goes that silence. Here goes that silence. See, if the enemy can silence you, he usually can restrict your purpose. If the enemy can silence you, he can restrict your purpose. Watch this. I'm gonna break something down. I might have shared this before in previous. Just take a look at your senses, right? You look at your senses. You got your sense of touch, right? Got your sense of smell. Got your sense of sight. You got your sense of taste. You got your sense of hearing. You got 5 senses, right? Out of the 5 senses, okay, check this out. Sense of touch, I got 2 hands. Even if my left hand is not in use, my right hand can touch something. My sense of smell, I could shut down one of my nostrils, the other one's still gonna work. Huh? Sense of hearing, I can close one of my ears, and though it's limited, so it sounds a little hollow, I still can hear with my right ear. Can close one of my eyes, still can see out the other one. Is it a complete picture? No, but I still can see. But the sense of taste happens on the tongue. And the thing about speech, the thing about the tongue is that the instrument used for that sense is only one of them. There's only one of them. Because the tongue shouldn't do 2 things at the same time. Your yay has to be yay. Your no has to be no. Your speaking, your speech. Once you talk out of 2 sides of your mouth, that's what they mean. The old folks say you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. But it's only one tongue. What does it mean when I talk out of both sides of my mouth? It means I got one instrument doing 2 different things. I say I hate you, I say I love you, I say it's ugly, I say it's pretty, I say it's joyful, I say it's sad. It's one instrument doing 2 things. The tongue is so powerful because it's the only instrument for a sense that doesn't have a backup. That's how powerful it is. Watch this. If you audit your body, I don't even want to get into this because this is a whole different lesson. This is a whole different lesson. But if you audit your body, you can determine the importance of things by the amount that there is. Y'all ain't ready? Listen. You can determine the importance of a function of something by the amount that it is, right? I can cut this hair today and grow some back tomorrow. Most people, right? I'm not talking about extreme cases with, sickness or cancers involved. I'm talking for most of us, I can cut it, I can lock it, I can braid it, I could afro it, I could perm it, I could get some waves today. If I decide I want to grow it back, I can grow it back. But its ability to just come and go, it shows how we treat it in its level of importance. Does it have a function? Yes. But is it as important to the function of the whole body as the heart, which is only one? Huh? I have over 200 some odd bones in my body. 260, I think, over 260 bones in my body. Amanda might know the exact number. 206, I had the number backwards. 206 bones in my body. Of course, I don't want to break a bone, but can I break a bone and still function? Yes. Huh? You can determine the importance of something to the body by how many God gave us. As the number gets smaller, the significance increases. Think of the things that there's only one of. One brain, one heart, one tongue. Huh? If you audit your body, you'll see as the numbers, right, get lesser, the more significance it has to the function. Right? So I can still function with 206 bones, because if I break one, of course, I don't want to, but I still can do things. If I cut my hair, the particles, they're going to grow back. And when you start talking about things that are more important, liver, lungs, heart, like it starts getting lesser in number. And the tongue is one of those things. It's only one of them. That tells me that what I'm speaking, there shouldn't be multiple things. When I declare it and when I speak it, that's what it should be. You got a backup nostril, you have a backup ear, you have a backup eye, you have a backup hand. I don't have a backup tongue. So you got to understand the power of when the enemy silences you, he restricts most of your purpose. He restricts, watch this, the conduit for where your purpose comes out of. When you become silent over the vision, watch this, it says, do not be afraid, but go on speaking. God came to Paul in a vision. When you become silent over the vision God gave you, you are now restricting the conduit that vision is going to manifest from vision into manifestation. It comes through the conduit of the mouth. It births in the mind, right? That's the mind is the, watch this. This for my note takers. The mind, that's a ball. Facts. The mind is the womb for vision. It's not the baby though. The mind is the womb. Right? The baby still needs a conduit to come through into the earth. We all were in a womb once, but it needed a conduit. Okay? It needed an avenue to come through. So God designed the anatomy of a woman to bring that into fruition into the earth. Similarly, when God gives you vision, the mind is only the womb for it. It can't manifest there. That's where it's developed. It can't manifest, like it don't birth there. It's conceived there. It develops there. But notice God gave Paul a vision, and then the next thing he tells him is, don't be afraid and don't be silent. Because the minute fear and silence become stronger than vision, you ain't doing nothing but daydreaming. You're doing nothing but daydreaming. Right? So when we look at this society we live in, we have to realize we cannot be silent. Even, here's where we get into the text, right? Here's where we get to the text, where we wrap this up. Even when we have a reason to. Okay? Because some of us are silent because we have a justified reason and we hang our hats on that justified reason. You don't know what happened to me last time I spoke up? So now we lean on the fact that we have that justification to be silent and don't overcome that fear. Okay, Paul has a reason to be silent. We got to understand this. We got to go. So here's what he says. He says, verse 1. Let's go back up to verse 1. All right, because I want to give us a little bit of history before we close this out, because there's some historical context here. And it might be good for when we arguing against folk that, try to talk about our faith in a bad way. After this, Paul left Athens. This is Athens, Greece, y'all. He was visiting and went to Corinth. He found a Jew named Aquila. It says Aquila. His full name is really Achilles. It's a masculine name. Achilles, a native of Pontus, recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla. I know that sounds boring. There's history there, and let me break it down. Okay, there was I believe he was either a king or emperor. He was a ruler of some sort. His name was Claudius, right? And he had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Okay, he ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Now, here's the reason Achilles and his wife Priscilla were being asked to leave. Okay, because there is some historical context where in Rome at the time, some of the Jews were converting into Christianity. Okay, and they were testifying. I think it's in verse 5. It actually tells you Silas and Timothy came from Macedonia. Paul devoted himself to preaching, testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Messiah. Oh, that doesn't give you all the history, but nevertheless, pretty much if you break it down, what was going on at that time historically, and I love giving you this because this is stuff that you don't have to. This is stuff you could find in what you call extra biblical texts. Right? You always want to cross-reference some stuff historically. Why? Because that gives the Bible more veracity. It gives it more truth. It gives it more foundation. This is stuff you can look up in ancient history, right? Who was Claudius? He was a real person. What was he doing? What were the edicts he was putting out at that time? You can look that up in extra biblical texts. You understand what I'm saying? So that helps the Bible get more validity, that this is not just some stuff people just threw around. Okay, so check this out. Claudius had ordered to all Jews to leave Rome. Why? Because they was causing some ruckus, pretty much, right? To keep it as simple as possible. They were causing ruckus, and essentially there was pretty much what you call it? It's a word I'm looking for. Expulsion. They were expelled from Rome. There were Jews who had been expelled from Rome by this emperor Claudius. That's the word I'm looking for. It was a Jewish expulsion, right? They pretty much had been under what you would call like apostolic teaching in Jerusalem, right? And as they were getting this teaching, they were starting to believe that Jesus, okay, we coming out of this law thing, and Jesus is Lord. So then what it was a lot of what they called rioting over Christos, Chrestos, right? I'm gonna spell that over here. And that was like a Latin term that was being confused with the name Christ. So there was a lot of uproar about Jews that were in Rome that were saying, yo, this Jesus guy, I'm hearing about him, and I'm hearing he's a real deal. And because he's the real deal, it's not that I'm not Jewish anymore, right? It's not that I'm not Jewish. And that's the thing that a lot of people get confused. Like the practices that some of these Jewish people, the rituals and things like that they did in the Old Testament, they don't have to lose that to embrace Jesus. They just have to understand that Jesus is more powerful than the law. But they can still, worship. Celebrate Yom Kippur, celebrate Rosh Hashanah, right? They can still celebrate those things because they don't take away from who Jesus is. They just lead to who Jesus is, right? So what was happening though is that some of the converted were becoming what you would call like supersessionist. They were becoming hateful towards Jewish communities, right? And it became to bring like a bridge, a divide. And even though the Bible doesn't give any evidence that Achilles and Priscilla were two of these people, there were communities that were being converted into Christianity that were becoming violent if you weren't converted as a Jew. Okay, so understand there were a lot of European Christian communities that were trying to, and this is where our faith gets a bad name, because it has such a dark history of trying to force people to convert, because they think they're doing God's job by forcing people to convert. And God don't want nobody that don't want him. God is a God of heart. God says, I want who wants me. I don't want somebody who is forced to me. I want somebody who wants me. Holler back at me if you ever been in a relationship. You don't want nobody that's just tolerating you. Like, yo, you gotta date her, or I'm gonna put a gun to your head. You're gonna be like, all right, I ain't trying to die, whatever. I'll take shorty out, whatever, bro. Like, but in your heart of hearts, I don't want her. I just don't want to die. And that's what was happening with a lot of early European Christian movements. That's how a lot of African-based Christianity got whitewashed, because of the advancement of weapons and the financial, advancements that they had. They were making deals with African kings to come into our land and really just take over. I don't want to get into all of that right now because we don't have any time, but there's a lot of things that are accredited to European scholars, and they're really African scholars. Yeah, white supremacy strikes again. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? So these are the things that we need to understand. Like, our faith existed well before slavery, well before the transatlantic slave trade. But even then, there were efforts of white supremacy that came into Africa from Europe and things like that, into Northern Africa, went down to more sub-Saharan places. And as you get more, I don't want to make this a history class, but as you get into more sub-Saharan Africa, the people get darker, right? And as they get darker, European and Eurocentric efforts saw that as less valuable. So, oh, these are the people, we can use their body as commodity, because their darkness, they won't be valued. And then our bodies became commodity throughout an agreement in all of Europe to say, this is what we're going to use to gain wealth. Not a product, a people. Right? So there's no evidence that Achilles and Priscilla were part of this radical, forceful conversion. But at the time, all the Jews that were coming into Christianity and learning more about Jesus were being told they got to go. You ain't going to mess up what we got here. Okay? So there was this great expulsion, right? Why am I giving you all this history? Because this history informs a reason for Paul's trauma. Paul is justified in his fear because he hears about the things happening across the world to people who are preaching Jesus. So in verse 9, I mean, it's verse 9 where the Lord comes to him in a vision and tells him, don't be afraid. He's really acknowledging that I understand you have a right to be afraid, but here's why you don't need to be afraid. And the restriction on a lot of us and a lot of our mouths is is history. You feel me? So our history starts to inform how vocal we are in our present. Let's say that again for the note takers. Our history starts to inform how vocal we are in our present. If I come from an abusive house, and when I speak up and question authority, and I get used to getting whooped on or beat on or called stupid when I challenge authority, even if it's respectful, guess what happens when I get older? My present, I silence myself in the presence of all authority. Even when I have valid questions, even when I have rational questions, even when I have questions that'll push them to be better. Why? Because the trauma of my history informs how vocal I am in my present. If I'm abused by a spouse or gaslighted by a partner, every single time I want to go out with friends or something, guess what I'm going to stop doing? I'm going to stop asking to go out with friends. Right? So our now gets silenced by the trauma of our history. This is why I said I got to go through a little bit of the history so that you understand what's happening globally, politically, and economically. Okay? Paul is up against an unjust criminal system. Read 2 chapters earlier, he just got out of jail. And the only reason he got out wasn't because he had a good lawyer, it's because God had to send an angel to come and break the daggone gates open. He ain't dealing with no Ben Crump. He don't got no good paid ADA that could come and defend him. He needed God to literally send angels down and break open the prison in order for him to get out. God is dealing with his past. Your history will cause you to be silent. Black folks silent at the business tables. Black folks silent in the marketing meetings. Black folks silent in the community meetings. Black folks silent on social media. Black folks silent in the supervisory meetings. Black folks silent in the workspace. Black folks silent in education. In the classroom, brilliant, but won't raise your hand because you don't want to be looked at and called stupid because that was your past. So now genetically, you need a God that can underwrite trauma that's already at work in you. This is why Paul says we get adopted into the spirit of sonship. What is he talking about? We take on a new life as a different child when we come to Christ. Because only Jesus has broken the curse that will allow a genetic code that's already at work to be overrode. And say, even though you were going in the direction of silencing your gift, even though you were going in the direction of silencing your vision, even though you were going in the direction of remaining silent about the dream I gave you, even though you were headed in the direction of remaining silent about wealth building, silent about community partnerships, silent about how to establish economic power amongst each other, silent about how to go back to school, silent about the gifts he put in your children, silent about the gifts he gave you and your spouse, silent, 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 silent. And silence will prohibit progress of the dream. So God tells him, don't be afraid. Watch this. I got you. I need you to understand. There are two things working respectively. When I say respectively, I mean they get matched up with each other. Okay? There's two things he tells him not to do. And then he gives him two reasons why he shouldn't do them. Which means, here we go, and we're closing out with this point, which means that each thing matches up respectively with each other. Okay? The first thing he told him not to do, somebody put it in the chat for me. First thing he told him not to do, somebody drop it in the chat. Let me make sure y'all paying attention. Drop it in the chat for me. The first thing he told him not to do. Shoot first. We're going to shoot first. Don't be afraid. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Don. Don't be afraid. Even if you see the answer up there, manifest it in yourself and type it anyway, if you can. If you have access to your keyboard on your phone, just type it in there anyway. Type it in there anyway. Don't be afraid. 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 Yes, Lord. This is for y'all. Don't be afraid. Say it to yourself out loud if you can. If you ain't at work, you could whisper it to yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I know you're going into a season that's different from the last one. Don't be afraid. I know you're going into a season that's different from the last one. Don't be afraid. I know you don't even know how to articulate what you're going into. Let me tell you, the reason you can't articulate it is because you're going to be the first to do it. So you don't even have a blueprint for why or how it's supposed to look. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Okay? Don't be afraid. Watch this. Don't be afraid matches up respectively with what? For I am with you. Can you highlight that real quick? For I am with you. Don't be afraid. In other words, God got me. Don't be afraid. God got me. Okay, but remember I said it's matching up respectively. So that means there's a second thing he tells him not to do, which matches with the second reason that he gives him why he don't have to do it. The second thing he tells him not to do is what? Don't be silent. Huh? Second thing he tells him is to not be silent. So what does that match up with respectively? The Bible don't make no mistake. Listen, it put it a certain way for a reason. Why not? Why not be silent? For I have many. Nobody's gonna attack you. Why? The real reason, it looks like it's two different reasons, but really what he's saying is nobody's gonna attack you or harm you. Why? I have many in this city. So he tells them, don't be afraid, for I got you. But don't be silent, because I'm sending you a community that got you. I feel like running around this place. Oh, God. He tells him personally, don't be afraid, because God got you. But don't be silent, because silence, watch this, and I'll break this down for you, and this is what we're leaving on. Fear has personal impact. Silence has social impact. Ooh, hello, walls. Hello, chandeliers. Fear is personally crippling. Silence is socially crippling. Write that down for my note takers, please. God ain't no fool. You know why he told him what he told him and what he told him for? The fear is going to restrict Paul. The silence restricts Paul from his social group. Okay? When you're silent, you're not crippling yourself. When you're silent, you're crippling others. You cripple yourself when you are fearful. So he says, I have many in this city who are my people. When you open your mouth, we're so busy trying to reach everybody that we don't realize when we're true to what God gave us, we reach the right somebodies. The most successful people, whether it's in business, whether it's in ministry, whether it's in impact, whether it's in society, it's not the people that touch everybody. It's the people that found the people they're supposed to touch. Once you realize, I'm going to give you something that's going to be prophetic for the rest of 2022. I'm not for everybody. All right. I'm out y'all later. I'm not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. And I'm telling you, I hear God say 3 great entrepreneurs is going to rise up right out of this crowd once you synthesize and crystallize who you're for. I love everybody, but I'm not assigned to everybody. Don't get the two twisted. See, we confuse love with assignment, and we think that because we're commissioned to love everyone, that we're assigned to everyone. Y'all making me, all right. I need to get out this lesson. It's my daughter's birthday, y'all. We going out to eat. I gotta stop this. All right. Okay. All right. Just because, write that down in your notes. Do not confuse love with assignment. I am called to love everyone, but I am not assigned to everyone. And the minute I crystallize that in my life, I promise you, 2022 gonna take off. I ain't for everybody. So God is saying, God, thank you, Ebony. So God is saying to us, don't be scared because I'm with you, but don't be silent, for I got people in the city that's with you. But they see, everybody is not prophetic. So they don't know that you with them until you open your mouth. There's a reason. There's a reason. The fear cripples you. The silence cripples everybody else. It cripples the group you're assigned to. It fractures your ability to connect with people that wouldn't know you're for them until you open your mouth. So we got to resist the demonic empire that would try to silence our people. I'm sorry for those that just logged on. We about to get out of here. We about to get out of here because I got to let this go. I got to let this go. I'm sorry. I got to let this go, y'all. But remember, take into 2022, I'm assigned to love everybody, but I'm not assigned to everybody. Don't fear, because God is with you. But don't be silent, because his people are with you. Okay? Fear is crippling to you, but your silence is socially crippling. And I commission you all that it is your season to open your mouth. If this was a Sunday and I was preaching, I might preach lift every voice. Open your mouth. And watch this. That can be metaphoric. Okay, check me out. That can be metaphoric because for some of us, communication verbally is not our skill set. When I say open your mouth, I mean to be vocal about what it is that God gave you as vision. That could look like something you put on paper. That could look like something you put on social media. That could look like a conversation in private that you're supposed to have. It don't gotta be with dozens of people, hundreds of people watching and following and listening. But the point here, the crux here is to not sit on what God has given you. He told Paul one night in a vision, don't be afraid, but go on speaking and don't be silent. All right, I gotta go. I love y'all. Check this out. Here's the announcement that I wanted to make at the top, but I said, let me just get right into this lesson. I'm gonna make the announcement and then I'm gonna leave the room open for a couple minutes just in case people have questions, okay? Our sister Nina the Lord has laid it on her heart to increase our prayer, increase our time in prayer together as a community, which I think is super duper dope. So actually, let me stop the recording.